At 76 in age, when most people retreat into the quiet comfort of memories, King Charles III has stunned Britain with a confession, long thought buried forever, the truth about the greatest love of his life. Not Camilla, the current queen consort at his side, not fleeting romances from his youth, but a name that still echoes around the world with awe and sorrow, Princess Diana. In a private emotional conversation that came without warning, King Charles revealed something he had never dared to say aloud in decades. What compelled him to break the silence now? Was it his declining health, the mounting turmoil within the royal household, or perhaps a memory that never truly faded? This heartbreaking confession has shaken not only the royal family, but also the public's understanding of a love story many thought they knew. It sheds new light on his marriage to Diana, on long-held regrets, and on a love that, maybe just maybe, arrived at the wrong time. For the first time in a long while, King Charles didn't speak like a royal. He spoke like a man who had loved deeply, lost a lot, and held back his feelings for too long. It was a confession straight from the heart. He talked about someone very special, someone who once meant everything to him. He said, "I count on the loving help of my darling wife, Camilla. In recognition of her own loyal public service since our marriage 17 years ago, she becomes my queen consort." For many years, that love stayed hidden behind palace walls, royal rules, and public expectations. Now, after decades of silence, he opened up about the one person who truly touched his soul. His voice was filled with sadness, and his words made many wonder. Who was he really talking about? Was it Camilla, the woman he stood beside for years? Was it Princess Diana, the mother of his children and the people's princess? Or could it be someone else entirely? Someone the public never knew about? As King Charles looked back on his life, he spoke of lost time, missed chances, and the heavy crown of royal duty. He shared how his heart had once wanted something different, something more real, but life inside the royal family didn't allow it. He followed the path expected of him, but his heart never forgot the one it truly wanted. This confession wasn't just news. It was a moment that made people feel. Around the world, people listened with open hearts. Some cried, others felt shocked, and many were left asking one big question. After all these years, who was the true love of King Charles's life? Get ready, because the royal truth is more surprising than anyone imagined. The weight of the crown, love versus duty. From the very beginning, Prince Charles's life was anything but ordinary. While other children ran freely through muddy fields, climbed trees, or played silly games in the streets, Charles grew up in palaces under the constant watch of nannies, guards, and royal aides. His childhood was not his own. Every step he took, every word he spoke, every look he gave, it was all carefully monitored, judged, and shaped to fit the mold of a future king. Even before he could fully understand the meaning of duty, it had already become the defining part of his life. As he grew older, the weight of his royal destiny only grew heavier. In school, he was never just Charles. He was the Prince of Wales, heir to the throne. Prince Charles joined Gordonstoun on the 1st of May 1962, and all of his teenage school years were spent here before he then went on to study at Cambridge. He couldn't act out like a normal teenager or rebel or make mistakes without the world knowing. Expectations pressed on him from every direction. There was a certain way he had to sit, speak, dress, and even smile. Everything was calculated. Everything was rehearsed. He was born into privilege, yes, but also into a prison of tradition. An announcement stated, to Princess Elizabeth, heir, presumptive to the throne, a son had been born. Glad news that was soon echoing round the world. And then came the matter of love. Like any young man, Charles longed for companionship, not just a royal partner, but someone who truly understood him, someone who would laugh at his jokes, listen to his fears, and hold his hand through life's storms. And for a brief moment, he found that someone. She wasn't just elegant and charming. She made him feel real. With her, he wasn't the Prince of Wales. He was simply Charles. They would spend hours talking, laughing, dreaming. She gave him a sense of comfort and peace he had never known before. But love in the royal family wasn't about emotion. It was about duty. It was about bloodlines, appearances, and public approval. And sadly, the woman Charles had given his heart to didn't meet those royal standards. She was seen as unsuitable, not because she lacked grace or intelligence, but because she didn't fit the image the monarchy wanted. The royal advisors whispered disapproval. The family frowned. The pressure mounted. And so with great sorrow, Charles was forced to let her go, not because he stopped loving her, but because he wasn't allowed to love her openly. The crown demanded sacrifice, and in this case it demanded that he give up the one person who made him feel whole. He didn't cry in public, but inside he was shattered. He knew what was expected of him, and he chose duty over desire. That decision would follow him like a shadow for the rest of his life. Eventually, Charles married Lady Diana Spencer, a young woman who seemed perfect on paper. The Archbishop of Canterbury called the wedding of Prince Charles and Lady Diana Spencer today the stuff of fairy tales. And in spite of Scotland Yard's most elaborate security measures ever, there was a once-upon-a-time atmosphere in London. She was beautiful, well-mannered, and from a noble family. The public adored her and the royal family approved. At first it seemed like the start of a fairy tale. The grand wedding, the cheering crowds, the shining smiles, it all looked magical. But behind the golden curtains of Buckingham Palace, things were very different. Charles and Diana were two people thrown into a partnership they didn't fully understand. She struggled to adjust to royal life, while he wrestled with the ghost of the love he had lost. He tried to move forward, but his heart was still caught in the past. Even when he was with Diana, part of him was elsewhere. That silent ache, the memory of the woman he was never allowed to choose, never left him. Over time, the cracks in their marriage began to show. Diana felt isolated and unloved, and Charles felt misunderstood. The weight of their roles, the public attention, and the private pain became too much to carry. They both suffered quietly, each in their own way, and the world, once so enchanted by their royal union, began to see the truth behind the glittering facade. Charles had followed the rules, he had done what the crown required, but in doing so he had buried a piece of himself. He had walked away from the one person who truly knew him. And while he wore the royal robes and attended the grand ceremonies, there was always a quiet sadness in his eyes, a reminder of the cost of choosing duty over love. Diana in the public eye, a complicated love story. When Lady Diana Spencer married Prince Charles, the world couldn't stop smiling. People filled the streets, waving flags, cheering, and crying tears of joy. Millions of viewers sat in front of their TVs, watching what looked like the perfect royal fairy tale. Diana was only 20 years old, young and full of hope. She wore a stunning white gown, and Charles stood beside her in his royal uniform. To the outside world, it was a dream wedding straight out of a storybook. But what the world didn't see was the storm quietly building behind the palace walls. From the very beginning, Charles and Diana were not a perfect match. They came from different worlds, not just in background, but in heart and mind. Diana was open with her emotions. She needed affection, attention, and reassurance. She wanted a husband who would love her deeply, someone she could laugh with and lean on during tough times. Charles, on the other hand, had grown up in a world where emotions were often hidden. He was raised to stay calm, follow duty, and never let personal feelings get in the way of responsibility. Even though they tried to make it work, something important was always missing between them. They didn't speak the same emotional language. Their conversations often felt cold. Diana cried for love while Charles stayed quiet, unsure how to give it. He cared for her, yes, but his heart wasn't fully in the marriage. Why? Because a part of his heart had always belonged to someone else, Camilla Parker Bowles. Camilla had been in Charles's life long before Diana entered the picture. She wasn't just a friend. Queen Camilla is sharing the secret to her and King Charles III's 20-year marriage. After tying the knot in 2005, the Queen Consort is sharing what has kept their marriage, which was Charles's second following his divorce from the late Princess Diana in 1996. She was his confidant, someone who understood him without him having to explain. Their bond ran deep, and even after Charles married Diana, that connection never really ended. It became a secret that hovered over the marriage like a dark cloud. Diana felt it. She wasn't foolish. She sensed that her husband's heart was somewhere else. Slowly, the sparkle in her eyes began to fade. She felt alone in a golden cage surrounded by luxury, but aching inside. Her pain wasn't just about love. It was about being ignored, misunderstood, and left in the shadows of someone else's love story. In a now famous interview, Diana shared her feelings with the world. When asked, "You'll ever be queen?" she replied, "No, I don't, no." "Why do you think that?" the interviewer asked. She responded, "I'd like to be a queen of people's hearts, in people's hearts, but I don't see myself being queen of this country." "There were three of us in this marriage," she said softly, her voice filled with sadness. Everyone knew she meant Camilla. It was a sentence that hit like a lightning bolt. Suddenly, the fairy tale people believed in didn't feel so magical anymore. The world began to realize how much Diana had suffered behind closed doors. Charles, too, was torn. He wasn't a heartless man. He didn't enjoy seeing Diana in pain, but he also couldn't stop loving Camilla. No matter how much he tried to forget, Camilla remained the one person who truly knew him. He didn't want to hurt anyone, but in trying to please everyone, he ended up hurting them all. The love triangle between Charles, Diana, and Camilla became one of the most talked about royal scandals in history. Rumors filled newspapers. Paparazzi followed their every move. Diana cried in silence. Charles walked with a heavy heart, and Camilla stayed in the shadows, unable to show her face in public without judgment. The pressure on all three of them was crushing. Eventually, Charles and Diana decided to separate. Their marriage couldn't be saved. The world watched as their once celebrated love story fell apart. Later, they divorced, marking the official end of their royal partnership. It was a sad moment, not just for the couple, but for a nation that had hoped for something better. It was announced from Buckingham Palace that with regret, the Prince and Princess of Wales have decided to separate. Their Royal Highnesses had no plans to divorce, and their constitutional positions are unaffected. Still, the public never stopped loving Diana. She became even more beloved after the divorce. People saw her as a symbol of kindness, beauty, and quiet strength. She used her voice to help others, raising awareness for important causes and touching hearts around the globe. Her tragic death in 1997 broke the world's heart. As for Charles, he was left behind with deep emotions, guilt, regret, and sorrow. He had lost Diana, a woman who had been an important part of his life, even if they didn't always understand each other. And yet he still couldn't fully embrace the woman he had loved all along. The weight of royal duty, the past, and public judgment continued to follow him. It was a love story filled with beauty and heartbreak, joy and sadness. And even now, years later, the world still remembers how complicated and painful it all truly was. Camilla, the woman who waited in the shadows. Camilla Parker Bowles wasn't just another woman in Charles's life. She was his anchor, his confidant, and his true connection. Their story began long before the world ever knew Diana's name. It was in the early 1970s when Charles first met Camilla. At that time, neither of them could have imagined the twists their lives would take, nor how their love would be tested by time and duty. But from the start, there was something undeniable between them. They shared a deep, almost instant bond. When Charles was around Camilla, he could be himself. They laughed, they talked for hours, and they enjoyed each other's company in a way that no one else seemed to understand. Camilla was not only beautiful, but also someone who truly understood the weight of royal life, something few people in Charles's world could comprehend. She wasn't just another face in the crowd. With Camilla, Charles didn't have to pretend. They shared a connection that felt natural, genuine, and easy. But despite their undeniable chemistry, there was one major obstacle that stood in their way: the royal family. As the future King of England, Charles had responsibilities that no ordinary person could fathom. One of those responsibilities was to marry a woman who fit the royal image, a woman who would uphold the royal family's reputation and meet the expectations of the public. Unfortunately for Camilla, she didn't fit that mold. Her background wasn't what the royal family had in mind for their future king, and so despite their love, Charles was pushed to marry someone else who was deemed more suitable by the royal standards. Charles married Lady Diana Spencer in 1981, and to the outside world, it looked like the perfect fairy tale. But in reality, Charles's heart was not fully in the marriage. He had already given a part of it to Camilla. But just as Charles's love story took a different path, so did Camilla's. She too went on to marry someone else, Andrew Parker Bowles, a British Army officer. Yet the love that Charles and Camilla had shared never completely disappeared. It lingered hidden beneath the surface. Even as life moved forward, years went by, and Charles's marriage to Diana faced increasing tension. Behind the public facade of royal duty and the picture-perfect marriage, there was a growing divide between Charles and Diana. Charles's heart was torn in two. While he was committed to his royal duty, he never stopped thinking about Camilla. Even when he married Diana, he and Camilla stayed in touch. Their bond didn't fade. It only deepened. The friendship turned into an affair, though it was kept secret from the public. Still, rumors swirled. The media began to speculate. The public began to whisper, and eventually the truth came out. The affair between Charles and Camilla was no longer a secret. The media exploded and the public reacted with shock and anger. For many, Camilla was seen as the other woman, the one who had torn apart the royal marriage. Diana's pain was made public, and the world saw the toll the affair had taken on her. But amidst all the anger, pain, and judgment, one thing remained. Camilla stayed loyal to Charles. She never walked away. She didn't try to hide from the storm. Instead, she weathered it alongside him. After Diana's tragic death in 1997, Charles's life began to shift. It was reported that Diana, Princess of Wales, has in fact been killed in that car accident in Paris. He was no longer the same man. He had lost a woman who had been a big part of his life. The memories of his marriage to Diana were bittersweet, full of both love and loss. But through it all, there was Camilla standing by his side. Slowly, Charles began to bring her back into the royal fold. It wasn't easy. The public's opinion of her remained mixed. Some still blamed her for the breakdown of Charles's marriage to Diana, while others began to see her in a new light. Charles, however, was determined. He knew the love they shared was real, and it was worth fighting for. In 2009, after years of navigating public scrutiny and royal expectations, Charles and Camilla finally married. The ceremony was small, quiet, and a far cry from the grand royal weddings of the past. But it marked the beginning of a new chapter in their lives. For Charles, marrying Camilla was a long-awaited moment of peace. It was a chance to be with the woman he had always loved, someone who had been there through thick and thin. Even now, at 76, Charles continues to speak of Camilla with deep affection and admiration. He credits her with being his strength, the one who stood by him through everything. Their love story, though far from perfect, is real. Camilla had waited for years, silently enduring the public's harsh judgment and the years of separation. But despite everything, she never gave up on Charles, and he never gave up on her. And yet, in his most recent confession, Charles hinted at something that caught the public by surprise. While Camilla has been by his side through thick and thin, the story of Charles's greatest love may not be as simple as many think. The mystery woman, someone the world never knew. In an emotional confession that caught the world off guard, King Charles spoke words that left everyone questioning. He said, "The love of my life is someone I never got to grow old with." At first, these words seemed to make sense. Surely he was referring to Camilla, the woman who had stood by his side for decades. After all, they were growing old together now, in their late 70s, still united after years of hardships and royal expectations. Or perhaps he was talking about Diana, his first wife, with whom he had shared such a tumultuous and publicly painful marriage. But Diana had tragically passed away in 96, so who else could he possibly be referring to? The question lingered, and soon royal experts, the media, and the public began speculating. Was there another woman in Charles's life that no one knew about? A woman who was never part of the royal spotlight? Someone who had captured Charles's heart deeply, but whose love story with him remained hidden from the world? This theory has gained traction over the years. And while the details remain mysterious, the possibility of this secret love affair has never been fully ruled out. Rumors have swirled over the years that Charles may have loved a woman before his marriage to Diana, someone who didn't fit the mold of a typical royal bride. This woman was said to be intelligent, kind, and fiercely independent. She wasn't looking for fame. She wasn't after the glitter of royal life. And most importantly, she wasn't interested in the power that came with being associated with the crown. She simply loved Charles for who he was, a man, not a king. That's something that must have been incredibly rare for Charles to find in his world. As Charles spoke about the missed chances in his life, about the future that never happened, it's easy to wonder, was he reflecting on this lost love? Was he mourning the relationship that could have been but never came to fruition because of the strict royal expectations that surrounded him? The idea that a love so deep, so real could be quietly left behind because of something as cold as duty is a heartbreaking thought. In this part of the confession, Charles revealed something raw and vulnerable, something many didn't expect from the man who had always been seen as a stoic, almost distant figure. It reminded the world that even kings, even those who live in palaces and are surrounded by luxury experience, regret loss and missed opportunities. This part of his story is so much more than a royal secret. It is a universal story of love, sacrifice, and the painful truth that sometimes, even when we have everything, we can still lose the one thing that matters most. A lifetime of regret, what Charles wants the world to know. As King Charles spoke about love, it was impossible not to sense the depth of emotion in his words. He stated, "On behalf of all my family, I can only offer the most sincere and heartfelt thanks." There was a heaviness and undeniable weight in his voice that made it clear he wasn't just speaking of love in a general sense. He was reflecting on the choices he had made, the paths he had followed, and the immense sacrifices he had made along the way. He was recounting the chapters of his life that most people never get to see. And more importantly, he was talking about the love that slipped through his fingers, the love that he still holds in his heart, even after all these years. For most people, when we look at someone as powerful as a king, we often imagine they have everything they could possibly want: castles, riches, endless luxuries, and untold power. But Charles's words shattered that image, showing the world that being a king isn't just about wealth or privilege. It isn't just about living in palaces and attending grand ceremonies. No, being a King Charles revealed is also about the constant weight of duty and responsibility. It's about making decisions that affect not only your life, but the lives of others. And sometimes those decisions are far from easy. It's about having your life carefully mapped out for you from the moment you're born, with little room for personal desires or happiness. From a young age, Charles was thrust into a world where duty came before everything else. His life was not his own. It was the property of the crown. The royal family was his first priority, and everything else, including his personal happiness, it had to take a back seat. The choices he made were often not of his own making. His relationships, his marriages, and even his closest friendships were often shaped by what was deemed acceptable by the royal institution. In the end, love was often something he had to set aside. Charles's confession revealed the deep pain of living a life bound by duty. He shared with the world that he often had to make the painful decision to let go of what he wanted most for the sake of royal expectations. And while the public may have viewed his life as one of privilege, Charles's words made it clear that he paid a high price for that privilege, a price that included his personal happiness and his right to choose whom he loved. The love that Charles speaks of isn't just about the famous women in his life, like Camilla or Diana. It goes deeper than that. It's about the love he had for a woman whose name may never be known, the woman who in many ways represented what Charles could never have. She was someone he deeply cared for, someone who made him feel whole and understood. But she didn't fit the royal mold. She wasn't the right match in the eyes of the monarchy. So just like so many things in his life, he had to let her go. This decision stayed with him for the rest of his life, troubled Diana and Charles's relationship. From the very beginning, their marriage was marked by tension, despite the fairy tale image presented at their wedding. Early cracks in their relationship became visible largely due to Charles's ongoing involvement with Camilla Parker Bowles. This betrayal left Diana feeling hurt, insecure, and undervalued as both a wife and a partner. Her diary entries reflect her struggle to cope with Charles's emotional distance and lack of commitment. The breaking point that led to the go-to-hell moment wasn't a single argument, but rather the result of years of emotional neglect and unresolved tensions. Diana had long suspected Charles's connection with Camilla, but the pressure from the royal family to maintain appearances left her feeling trapped. She was expected to play the role of the perfect wife and mother, while her own emotional needs were overlooked. Diana's feelings of isolation and abandonment are evident in her writings, where she often expressed the pain of being unloved by the man she had once dreamed of building a future with. The final straw came during a heated argument with Charles about his continued involvement with Camilla, a topic Diana had confronted him about many times before. This confrontation brought her pent-up emotions to the surface, resulting in one of the most poignant and raw moments recorded in her diary. The conversation quickly escalated when Charles dismissed Diana's feelings as irrational and labeled her as overly emotional. In her diary, Diana referred to this as the final straw, writing, "He treated me as if my feelings didn't matter. I reached my limit." This pattern of disregard and emotional neglect was common in their relationship. Diana often recorded Charles's cold and indifferent behavior, especially regarding his ongoing connection with Camilla. Despite her repeated efforts to open up and share her emotions, Charles rarely engaged in meaningful discussions about their marriage. This left Diana to face her emotional struggles alone. In one entry, she wrote, "I've tried everything, talking, crying, even begging him to understand, but nothing works. He refuses to, and he never will." Diana frequently expressed feeling trapped both emotionally and physically under the expectations placed on her as a royal. In her diary, she described the difficulty of finding her own voice within a palace where her roles as wife and mother overshadowed her identity. One entry described an instance where Charles publicly humiliated her by joking at her expense in front of friends. She wrote, "He might think it's funny, but to me, it's no joke. I feel like I'm dying inside and he doesn't even notice." This recurring pattern of emotional neglect deeply hurt Diana and contributed to the growing resentment that eventually led her to write "Go to Hell" in her diary. This act of defiance symbolized her resistance against the oppressive system that had silenced her for so long. In another entry, she stated, "I am not just his wife. I am a human being. I deserve to have my voice heard." Diana's writings also revealed the strain caused by two major issues: Charles's jealousy of her rising popularity and his continued relationship with Camilla Parker Bowles. These factors not only led to the breakdown of their marriage, but also inflicted significant emotional pain on Diana. In the early years of their marriage, Diana quickly became a global icon. Her natural charm, generosity, and beauty resonated with people around the world in ways Charles hadn't anticipated. She was admired by millions, which only intensified the tension in their already fragile relationship. Diana's personal diary reveals that while she cherished the love and admiration from the public, it came with an unexpected cost: her husband's jealousy. She wrote about how Charles's behavior shifted as her popularity grew. In one entry, she shared, "He resents that they prefer me over him. I feel it when we're in public. It's as if he can't stand the louder cheers for me." According to Diana's writings, Charles seemed insecure about his role within the royal family and the public's attention. His envy began to seep into their private life. Diana noted instances where Charles would criticize her looks or downplay her contributions to royal duties. In her diary, she recalled him saying her popularity was only due to her youth and beauty, not her own abilities. These remarks left Diana feeling unappreciated and confused. She had hoped for mutual respect in her marriage, but instead felt constantly undermined. Diana believed Charles could have embraced her popularity to strengthen the royal family, rather than letting it hurt his pride. However, one of the most devastating parts of their marriage was Charles's affair with Camilla Parker Bowles. This betrayal haunted Diana for years. She had known about his feelings for Camilla long before the public did. On multiple occasions, she confronted Charles about the affair, only to be met with indifference. In a particularly heartbreaking moment, Diana recalled asking Charles if he loved Camilla. He didn't deny it and simply responded, "What do you want me to do about it?" Her diary reveals the depth of her pain as she struggled with feelings of inadequacy and betrayal. She wrote, "I feel like I'm always overshadowed by her. No matter how much I try, he always turns to her." Diana's entries paint the picture of a woman grappling with the realization that her husband's heart belonged to someone else, leaving her unsure of how to cope with the emotional weight of her situation. Diana's heartbreaking confessions in her diary reveal the deep impact of Charles's infidelity, leading her to question her worth and place in his life. As his relationship with Camilla became more evident, Diana's anger towards both Charles and their circumstances grew. Her diary shows moments of hopelessness where she felt trapped in a loveless marriage while being forced to maintain a facade for the monarchy. She wrote, "I feel like I can't breathe in this existence." Despite the pressure to stay positive and uphold her public image, Diana was struggling inside as her husband's love was directed elsewhere. Diana faced serious mental health challenges, battling thoughts of ending her life and dealing with bulimia. Eating disorders, whether it be anorexia or bulimia, show how an individual can turn the nourishment. These struggles were hidden behind her graceful public image, but her diary openly shared her emotional turmoil. She began to feel increasingly lonely and isolated, often writing about how invisible and unheard she felt even by those closest to her, especially Charles. In one entry, she said, "I am constantly surrounded by people, yet I have never felt so isolated. No one understands my struggles." She also expressed, "I am pressured to be flawless, but I feel like I'm crumbling inside." As her marriage continued to fall apart, Diana's depression worsened, and she even started having thoughts of ending her life. In one devastating entry, she described standing at the top of the staircase at Kensington Palace contemplating suicide. She confessed, "I was so exhausted, exhausted from pretending, exhausted from being hurt, exhausted from feeling insignificant." Diana's battle with bulimia, which started as a way to cope with the stress of royal life, grew worse during her troubled marriage. She shared how the disorder gave her a sense of control in an otherwise chaotic life. She wrote, "It was the only thing I could control." Her emotional struggles were worsened by Charles's hurtful comments about her weight and appearance, which deepened her insecurity. In one journal entry, Diana recalled how Charles bluntly told her she was overweight, a comment that crushed her. She wrote, "I felt worthless. No matter what I did, I could never measure up to his standards." The eating disorder eventually became a way for Diana to punish herself. She wrote, "I wished I could vanish, believing that by making herself smaller, the pain would go away." Her diary offers a painful, honest account of her emotional and physical struggles during this difficult time. Diana's diary reveals how she often felt unsupported by those around her, even when her distress was clear. She wrote about how her pleas for help were often ignored or dismissed. In one particularly emotional entry, she wrote, "They are indifferent. They think I'm exaggerating, but they don't understand how much I'm suffering." This lack of emotional support deepened her sense of isolation, leaving her to face her mental health struggles largely on her own. Diana's personal battles with depression, thoughts of ending her life, and bulimia were compounded by the pressures of royal life and the emotional neglect in her marriage to Charles. In one entry, she confessed, "I don't know how much longer I can go on like this," reflecting the toll her circumstances had taken on her mental health. Yet even in her darkest moments, Diana showed incredible resilience. Her diary captured her determination to persevere. In one powerful passage, she wrote, "I won't let them defeat me. I have more strength than they realize." Diana's struggles profoundly affected her sons William and Harry. Even though much of the emotional turmoil was shielded from them at the time, as young boys they carried their sadness, quietly maintaining composure despite the grief they felt. Prince William later reflected on the difficult experience of mourning his mother publicly during her funeral. Although their grief was deeply personal, societal expectations forced them to share their pain with the world. William has spoken about his last conversation with Diana on the day she died. He recalled how the call was cut short as he and Harry were eager to play outside, unaware it would be their final exchange. Looking back, William expressed deep regret, wishing he had spent more time talking to her. This memory became a poignant reminder of how fleeting life can be. In the HBO documentary, Diana, Our Mother William, shared how her death shattered his world. He remembered being taken by his mother to a homelessness shelter at a young age, an experience that left a lasting impact, leaving him grappling with overwhelming grief. Although his family offered unwavering support, it took him a long time to come to terms with his loss. Being so young, he struggled to fully comprehend the enormity of what had happened. Diana's journals shed light on the emotional pain she endured during her marriage, including Charles's infidelity and detachment. While William and Harry were still young, they likely sensed the tension in their household. However, as adults, they have come to understand the full extent of the challenges their mother faced. Diana's diary entries reveal her heartbreak, much of which stem from her strained relationship with Charles, offering a deeper understanding of the struggles that shaped her life and legacy. These revelations may have deeply influenced William and Harry's view of their father over time. While both princes have spoken openly about their mixed feelings towards Charles, they continue to respect him as a father and as the future king. However, Diana's experiences have undoubtedly left a lasting mark on their relationship with him. As the eldest son and heir to the throne, William often handles the situation with diplomacy. But does he truly have a choice in his role? William has publicly supported his father and the monarchy while also honoring his mother's legacy. The insights from Diana's diary likely weigh heavily on him as he tries to balance his royal duties with his commitment to preserving her memory. Throughout his life, William has emphasized the values Diana instilled in him: compassion, kindness, and a strong sense of duty. The painful truths revealed in her diary may have only strengthened his resolve to uphold those principles even amidst family complexities. Harry, on the other hand, appears to have been more profoundly impacted by Diana's struggles. He has often spoken about the hardships she endured, including the relentless media scrutiny and the constraints of royal life. His recent decisions to step back from royal responsibilities and prioritize his family's happiness echo Diana's own feelings of being stifled by the royal institution. The diary's revelations about her unhappiness may have resonated deeply with Harry, influencing his decision to forge his own path and protect his loved ones. Despite their different approaches, both William and Harry remain united in preserving Diana's legacy. They honor her through public speeches, charitable initiatives, and by continuing to uphold the values she cherished. The recent insights from her diary have only reinforced their mission. The princes have expressed their desire to remember Diana not just as a princess, but as a strong, compassionate woman. Her struggles, as detailed in her private writings, inspire them to safeguard her legacy and share her story with the respect it deserves. From the start of her marriage, Diana was acutely aware of Charles's deep connection with Camilla, a bond that existed long before Diana entered the picture. This painful reality was a recurring theme in Diana's diary. In one entry, she wrote, "I always felt there was someone else in his heart. Even on our wedding day, I sensed a rivalry with her. This feeling of being a secondary figure in her own marriage caused Diana profound emotional pain." Her diary recounts moments where she confronted Charles about his relationship with Camilla. In one particularly heartbreaking entry, Diana questioned why her, "What does she have that I don't?" These entries reveal the deep frustration and sorrow Diana felt as she struggled to reconcile her love for Charles with the pain of his infidelity. Charles often responded to conflicts by withdrawing, leaving Diana feeling abandoned and hurt. She described how these arguments typically ended with emotional distance as Charles dismissed her pain. Reflecting on this, Diana wrote, "He shut me out, making me feel like an outsider in his world." Diana struggled deeply with her identity during these times, lamenting that she had become a version of herself. She did not recognize someone consumed by a desperate need for his affection and overshadowed by another. Her constant comparison to Camilla further eroded her already fragile self-esteem, creating an unbridgeable gap in her ability to feel loved by the man she cared for deeply. Diana felt immense shame as Camilla's presence in their social circles became more prominent. She recalled attending events where she knew Camilla would be present, feeling like the only one unaware of what was happening. After the birth of their son Harry, there was a brief period of renewed connection between Diana and Charles. It was noted that the proud and now rested father was the first to arrive this morning. However, this happiness was short-lived as Charles rekindled his relationship with Camilla. Despite Diana's efforts to mend their marriage, she could not compete with Charles's feelings for Camilla. This ultimate betrayal shattered what little trust remained, leaving Diana in despair. She described this as one of the most devastating moments of her life. In a bold move, Diana confronted Camilla at a birthday party in 1989, an act she later described as one of the bravest things she ever did during her decade-long marriage. However, despite her courage, Charles's relationship with Camilla continued to grow stronger. Diana's pain deepened when a private and intimate phone conversation between Charles and Camilla was leaked to the media in 1989, sparking the infamous Camilla Gate scandal. The details of their affair were exposed, creating a media frenzy that also damaged Camilla's reputation. At the time, Camilla was still married to Andrew Parker Bowles, further intensifying the public backlash. In an unusual move, Prince Charles directly addressed his affair during a televised interview with journalist Jonathan Dimbleby. When asked about his faithfulness to Diana, the interviewer questioned, "Is it that you were because of your relationship with Camilla Parker Bowles from the beginning, persistently unfaithful to your wife?" And Charles admitted he had been loyal until their marriage reached an irreparable state. Diana, too, spoke openly about their strained marriage in her famous 1995 interview with BBC Panorama. She acknowledged the complexities of their relationship, highlighting the presence of a third person, Camilla, as a significant factor. Diana shared her feelings of isolation and inadequacy, explaining how she was forced to maintain a composed public image while privately coping with the pain of Charles's infidelity. The immense pressure to uphold the appearance of a perfect royal marriage while enduring emotional betrayal ultimately became too much for Diana to bear. Diana's personal diary entries reveal the emotional struggles she endured in her marriage, often feeling weighed down by their troubled relationship. The betrayal she faced went beyond Charles's physical affair. It included the emotional neglect she experienced. Diana wrote about how Charles often seemed emotionally detached, leaving her to deal with her pain alone. She expressed, "Even when we are together, I can sense his mind is elsewhere, always with her." Her diaries capture the deep loneliness she felt competing with a woman who had been a part of Charles's life before and during their marriage. On December 9, 1992, Princess Diana and Prince Charles announced their separation, a significant moment for the British monarchy. Prime Minister John Major shared the news with the House of Commons, emphasizing that Diana and Charles had agreed to co-parent their children, Prince William and Prince Harry. Queen Elizabeth II supported their decision, signaling the amicable nature of the separation. The couple's unexpected joint appearance on May 30, 1993, during the 50th anniversary ceremony of the Battle of the Atlantic, sparked public and media speculation about a possible reconciliation. Arriving together on the Royal Yacht Britannia, Diana and Charles appeared cheerful as they attended the service at the world's largest Anglican cathedral. This public display of unity gave hope to many, but it marked one of their last public appearances together. The next was on December 25, 1993, during the traditional Christmas walk at Sandringham, where Diana joined the royal family for the holiday. Despite the emotional toll of Charles's ongoing relationship with Camilla, Diana's writings reflect her determination to hold on to her self-worth. Her diary entries highlight the profound impact of this betrayal on her emotional well-being, yet it also reveal her incredible resilience. Through her personal reflections, Diana portrayed herself as a woman of strength, enduring betrayal, loneliness, and the pressures of royal life. She showed remarkable resolve, particularly for the sake of her children and her sense of duty. Even in moments of vulnerability, Diana navigated the immense challenges of her role with dignity and strength. Her private writings unveil the hidden realities of her life under constant public scrutiny, where she was expected to maintain a perfect image while privately battling her struggles. Despite it all, Diana remained steadfast, showing her determination to persevere in the face of overwhelming adversity. Despite the perfect image she was expected to portray, Diana's humanity shone through. In her writings, she openly shared the emotional weight she carried, yet her spirit remained resilient. She once said, "I may not be perfect, but I give my best. That's all I can do." There are things we only learn to cherish once they are gone forever. Just like King Charles only dared to admit his love for Diana after she was gone for good. This is not just a personal sorrow, but a lesson for all of us. Don't let words of love, understanding, or apology be buried by time and silence. If you love someone, speak up. If there's something left undone, do it now. Because sometimes a second chance never comes back.